Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm doing a review on the Hayabusa T3 Kanpeki boxing gloves. So stay tuned. Hey guys, Carlo here. Today I'm doing a review on the Hayabusa T3 Kanpeki boxing gloves. I got mine in the white colorway, 16 ounces in Velcro. You can get the T3 in lace up as well. Anywhere between 12 and 16 ounces. And the Kanpeki version that you see here comes in 9 different colorways and is made of full genuine leather throughout the entire glove with a foamy cloth liner on the inside of the hand compartment with layered foam padding over the knuckles that is medium to firm in density. Lastly, the gloves are manufactured in the Philippines. Now, this is Hayabusa's most popular and longest running glove by far. It's been over 10 years since this glove has been released. I know time flies. And I think I did my first review on the Tokushu, which is the original name of the gloves. And it's still written on here, it says Tokushu. And then over the years, they kind of changed it to T3s. But I did a review on a pair back in, I think, 2012. So definitely over 10 years ago. And I believe I think it was like a tan and white pair of Tokushus. And then over the years, Hayabusa has kind of evolved the lineup of T3s. Now they have an entire deal with Disney, and obviously they have their Marvel and Star Wars lineup of gloves. And those gloves that you see that are, Star Wars, Marvel, they have the Captain America versions, the Deadpool, Iron Man, you have all these different characters. And then Star Wars, you have the Stormtroopers, the Darth Vaders. The base of those gloves are all T3. So they're all pretty much identical to what you see here. The only difference is going to be the aesthetics, the outside look of the glove. But they use the T3 as the base of that glove. And it can be a little confusing, at least for myself and maybe for you guys, on the current lineup of T3 gloves, because there's several different versions of the T3 at different price points. And so that's where it can kind of get confusing. They have their newer T3 that is the one with basically like the little hexagon cells that are like $350. Did a review on those gloves, I think last year. And then they have the Hayabusa T3 LX gloves, which are pretty much identical to this, but they're a premium leather version. So it's a nicer version. I did a review on those. I had those are kind of like a blood ox or kind of like a burgundy colorway. Those are full genuine leather as well. Those are the more premium versions. Those come in at $189. And then you have the Kanpeki versions that I have here, which are full genuine leather, just not as nice leather, but everything else about the glove is identical. Structurally, the same type of foam. The dual X wrist closure system is identical. The only difference is the material that's used for the glove itself. And then you have the original T3s, which I believe are $159. And those are synthetic, and they use their material, their PU is called Vylar. And that's actually the OG of the T3 line. When the Tokushus first came out, they were only a synthetic glove. They came in Vylar. And then it was only after a few years that they introduced a leather version. And then after that, they also introduced a lace-up version. Obviously, both of those were introduced to the lineup because of the demand for it. So I would assume that they had more demand for a leather version as well as a lace-up, and they added that. The only thing I would say about that is that I feel like now it's almost like it's oversaturated with so many different T3 versions that it gets confusing. You have the regular T3s, then you have the T3 Neons, which is essentially the same as the T3s, just a different colorway, but it's like a separate link that you have to go to buy them. Then you have the Kanpekis here, which is kind of like their mid T3. Then you have the premium T3s, which are the T3 LX. And then you have the one with like the honeycomb construction, which are $350. And then you have the whole Marvel Disney lineup for different designs. So I feel like they should just consolidate it, make one great T3 glove in their dual Velcro system, and one lace-up version. Because right now, as it stands, it can be kind of confusing on what the differences are between the gloves. So that's my takeaway on the differences between the gloves. I have not reviewed these Kanpeki versions just because they're genuine leather gloves. I've done the LX, I've done the synthetic, the originals. I've also done the lace-up, but I have never done the Kanpeki. So here I am doing a review on the Kanpeki version. From a design standpoint, the T3s to me have always been a hybrid glove. They're a mixture between like a Thai glove and a conventional boxing glove. And I say Thai glove is because they're shorter, they're stockier, they have a little bit more of a wider hand pocket and profile in that regard. This is their full genuine leather version, and the leather on here has kind of a satin finish to it. You do have that embossed hawk logo right there, right on the back of the glove towards the index knuckle. You also have their wrist splint system that helps reduce hyperflexion. That's what it's designed for, to reduce your wrist from flexing backwards if you land at an awkward position. You do have Hayabusa also written and embossed on the fingertip compartment. The inside of the palm as well as the thumb has a lot of ventilation holes with a nice sized grip bar, a little on the softer end. You do have a leather attached thumb right there. And of course, their patented dual X wrist closure system. It does say Tokushu, 16 ounces right there at the bottom. The way that this works, if you haven't seen it already, you do have a standard Velcro strap, but on the inside of that strap, you have a secondary strap. So basically you're getting this crossing motion across your wrist. And what that does, it does also have a piece of elastic, is it really locks your wrist in. And sometimes you can actually overdo it. You can tighten it too much and actually cut off the circulation to your hand. So you got to be mindful of that, and it can be uncomfortable. You also have this rubber tab that says Hayabusa. On the original Tokushus that I got back in 2012, I don't think they had this rubber tab on that. So they added that tab after the fact. I think they probably got a bunch of complaints that it was hard to tighten this down with one hand with the glove on, and there's nothing to grip onto. So you do have that rubber tab on there. But essentially it just loops through and you can tighten it down. Here's that foamy inner liner on the inside. Not the biggest fan of the liner in terms of maintenance. And the reason I say that is this foamy liner tends to soak up a lot of sweat, and it makes the hand compartment kind of hot. And so this is the type of glove that you have to be mindful of airing out once you're done training with these, because if you don't, and all that moisture builds up on the inside, these will get really stinky and funky. So this is the type of glove, based on the type of material they use on the inside, in my opinion, that soaks up a lot of sweat. And if you don't air it out and you just let it sit in your duffel bag to marinate, within a couple of weeks, this glove is going to get pretty funky. So just be mindful of that. You do have an elastic right there on the inner piping on the palm side. But yeah, I mean, over the years, it's relatively unchanged in terms of the actual design and look of the glove. I'm sure they've modified a little here and there, but outside of that, it stays true to the original Tokushu T3 design. Quality-wise, surprisingly, these gloves are actually really nice. And the leather on here is nice, thick, and supple. The stitching throughout the entire glove is done very nicely, symmetrical. There's no misstitching. There's no areas where the stitching is falling apart. I mean, if you wanted to be really nitpicky, you can see there's a little bit of like extra thread popping out there, but that's not something that I can get like a scissor and just trim that off. Overall, it's really good. I'd say that the flaw with this glove is the weight. When I put them on the scale, I believe the left glove is at 15.4 and the right glove is at 15.6 ounces. This is advertised as a 16-ounce glove, so they're slightly underweight. Let's average it out to about half an ounce of being underweight. So that's definitely an opportunity with this glove. And also what's unique about this glove is that these are manufactured in the Philippines, and we don't see too many gloves manufactured there. There's a brand called Shadow Fight Goods that I've reviewed their gloves, and those are also made in the Philippines. And what's funny is that the leather on this glove and the Shadow Fight Goods leather is very similar to each other, both in terms of texture, feel, and thickness. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they use the same leather manufacturer or supplier for their gloves. But the attention to detail is definitely there with the stitching. And I'm kind of wondering where the original T3s, the ones that are made of Vylar, they're synthetic, if they're made in the Philippines as well, or if they're made like in Pakistan or China. But definitely nice quality overall for what it is. I know sometimes Hayabusa gets a bad rap for being kind of this big, commercial marketed company that markets their equipment. You see them in, Men's Health magazine as the best glove in the universe and all that. But, putting that all aside, not taking any type of bias or any subjectivity away from it, the quality on here is actually pretty good for what it is, all things considered. I mean, weight's a little underweight, but other than that, stitching, Interior liner is not torn, no foam exposed. Balance of the gloves are done nicely. You can grab the back of the glove. You can grab the front as well. So overall, really nice quality throughout the entire glove. Where the thumb meets the index finger, it looks good there. On the outside edges is done really cleanly as well. Comfort wise, sliding your hand into the hand compartment. Again, the first thing you notice is that liner on the inside. Over a few rounds, gets pretty hot. With this dual X wrist closure, there's a lot of words to say with this glove. You can tighten it down. Be very mindful of how tight you make it, because again, you can cut off the wrist circulation. So it feels very comfortable. Thumb position is perfect. Nice deep thumb. I don't feel like it's too shallow, and the position is pulled in, which is nice. Finger compartment is nice and deep. You can feel the grip bar as well. It's not too narrow to where you feel like your fingers are butting up against each other, and you can get a potential blister from your fingers rubbing. It's not too wide either, like some Mexican gloves like my Casanovas from a while ago that were just way too wide, so you feel like there's this big void where your pinky's at. So not too wide, not too narrow. The material on the inside is nice and smooth, but again, it does get kind of hot on the inside. No stitching is felt where the grip bar is at, and also the secondary portion where the finger lays on the inside. There's more of that inner liner material that covers any potential stitching that you may feel. A good amount of foam, I'd say about 1 inch of foam on the back of the thumb, so that feels good. So in terms of just hand position, it feels really good. Nice deep finger compartment. You can roll your hand into a nice tight fist. I feel like the grip bar can probably be just a hair bigger to give yourself a little bit more something to grab onto. And I feel like this dual X wrist closure, by today's standards, to me is a little more outdated. And the reason I say that is because of where this closure sits. To me, it sits more on the forearm than it does on the wrist. And you can see my wrist hinges right above it. So yes, you're locking in more like your forearm than you are locking in your wrist. And I feel like this should taper up more so that you cover the wrist section, that you're going to get that movement with your wrist. And to me, you also should not completely inhibit your wrist to be able to move, because you don't want your hands to be basically robotic. You're always going to have a little bit of flexibility in your wrist, and you want that in your gloves because you need that to be able to have that flexibility with your punches. You just don't want to be able to overextend your hand and your wrist into a compromised position. So I feel like, yes, it works well for the forearm, but I feel like it needs to be a little bit higher up to give yourself a little bit more optimal support. That wrist splint on the back does a good job of keeping the hand from wanting to flip back up or rise up, and that's what it's designed to do. So overall, a very comfortable glove. Protection and performance wise, it uses that layered foam padding. To me, it's a medium to firm density, really good for everything in the gym, honestly. You're using it for sparring, hitting the bag, doing mitt work. Really everything in the gym you can utilize this glove for. And I'm sure you've seen at your gym, there's probably one of the more common gloves I see other people use at the gym is these T3s. Both just in terms of marketing, I think a lot of people just see it online, and if they're new to boxing, they're like, okay, I'm just gonna get those because, you know, Men's Health tells me to. So you have that group of people that are not well versed in boxing gloves, and that's fine. I mean, everyone, you know, when they come to the sport, are new to it, they don't know, right? They have to learn over the years and over time to find out what's good for them. But you know, overall, this is one of those gloves that you can use for everything in the gym, which is a good thing. And you get a good pop out of it. The punch surface is nice and flat. Thank God they didn't use molded foam in this glove, because that would be that would sink the ship for sure. But it's balanced, and you get a good amount of pop, feedback, and protection, shock absorption. So definitely like the foam that they utilize with this glove. Cost-wise, these gloves are $179. And to me, I mean, it's a you know, what was that, 80, 60, basically a $20 bump in price. So you're basically paying $20 more over the Vylar synthetic version. You know, whether that $20 is worth it to you, that's completely up to you. I prefer leather. I feel like the leather is a little bit more flexible, and over time, leather breaks in nicer than a synthetic does, because leather, again, is an actual living, or was a living skin, and it has that malleability and flexibility that when you start using it more and more, it just has a more worn-in patina feel to it, where a synthetic doesn't quite get that same feel. So for $20 more, I think it's worth it if you're going to choose between the standard Hayabusa, the T3s, and the Kanpeki version that you see here. Now, the difference between the two is obviously going to be some colorways, maybe a little bit different, so that might sway your decision making. But you have these, and then if you go $10 more, you have the LX, which is even more premium leather. Again, unless you're stuck on a color that you really want that the LX comes in, then I think these will do a good enough job. For what they are, they're decent gloves. I feel like there's better choices definitely now than there was 10 years ago when it comes to the glove. I think it's solid for what it is, but to me the competition has really, you know, caught up and or surpassed this glove in my opinion. You know, at the $200 price point, I would probably end up getting like some Rival, some of the Guerreros. I mean, there's good things about this glove, but at the price point of almost $200, there's so many other gloves I can choose out there that I prefer the size and profile. I'm not a big Thai glove person. If you do Muay Thai, then maybe this might be a good choice for you. But for conventional boxing, in my opinion, there's definitely better choices out there at that price point. So if you guys have any questions or comments, you guys know what to do, put them down below. I'll put a link in the description box where you can find these Hayabusa T3 Kanpeki boxing gloves. I'll see you guys later. Peace.